Hi folks, Lex Lights here. Now, I've long been a fan of QSP knives and QSP Better Knife, Better Life. That says on the side here, follow us on Instagram at QSP Knife. Now, I've been following them at Instagram on QSP Knife, and as such, they got in touch with me through there and sent me a couple of knives to review. Now, unfortunately, this was just before I had my fall in February, and so they arrived just after my fall in February, and here we are in July, and I'm just recording the second video. Now, I did the first one. The first one was the Hedgehog, which I've been carrying almost since it arrived. I couldn't get it initially because I was in hospital, but as soon as I was able to get hold of this, I've been carrying it ever since, and it really is a great little slip joint knife. This one in this golden carbon fiber, which I'm not a big fan of carbon fiber, but I actually really like this one. It's got this lovely hollow ground blade, and of course, being QSP, incredibly sharp. And it's also in a steel which I quite like actually, which is 14C28N. If you can just sort of see that on the blade. It's not a sort of high premium steel. It's not M360 or anything like that, but it's a very competent steel available at a reasonable price. This knife, in many ways, compares to some of the kind of Jack Wolf designs in terms of how nicely it's put together, the hollow ground blade and so forth. It's not the same. It doesn't have the titanium frame and so forth, but this is £90 as opposed to 300. And if you go for a micarta handle, it's available for even less than that. Anyway, they did that, and I've done a video on that, and you can watch that if you'd like. But they also sent me this, and this is what actually came in this box here. And turn it over, you can see this is the Hawk, and again in 14C28N steel, this time with a brass handle. So here it is. Now, brass handle gives it a bit of weight. I quite like brass. Personally, I would have preferred it without the black finish. I'd have preferred a raw brass because brass takes on its own patina and it's nice. But this does have a look of being ready to use from the moment you get it, which is a good thing. It's sort of pre-patinaed, and maybe at some point I might set about it and remove the pre-patina and see what happens, because it is solid brass underneath. But anyway, so this is a QSP knife, so it's got the QSP triangle on here. We've got a lanyard hole on it. We have, on the flip side, we've got the Torx tooling for the pivot, and with another screw here, and with two screws for the deep carry pocket clip, which is also inset into the handle. I don't know how well you can see that. The light's not good for that sort of thing. But the one downside to that is it is not ambidextrous. Now, this is a flipper knife. Now, I'm going to really upset people here because I cannot flick this knife. Now, that's not because there's anything wrong with this knife. I gave it to my wife. She was able to flick it straight open. There we are. I've managed to flick it open this time. It just takes a little bit of effort for me because my I don't have the fast twitch movement in my hands. My hands are considerably worse than they even were before my fall. So, it almost takes a sheer Goroff for me to be able to flick a knife consistently now. And I certainly can't flick it with the thumb studs. But as you can see, it does flick nicely. It comes out, it's a nice liner lock knife, and it's got some stainless steel liners inside there, inside the brass. But the brass isn't terribly thick, so although it has the heft of a brass knife, you can feel this is brass rather than carbon fiber. But it's got a nice solidity in hand without being overly heavy. It has a black wash blade. Well, I think it's a stone wash blade with a black wash over the top, which is attractive. I don't tend to go for black blades myself because I always think they look like they're attempting to be too tactical, and I prefer to be overtly non-tactical. Hence, the satin blade on that seems to me more in my style. But this is available in so many different handle materials, colorways for the blade, that there will be a Hawk to suit everybody. And it's a good knife, as ever with QSP. It's sharp. I mean, I tell this story so many times, it must be boring by now, but I bought this QSP knife many years ago, partly because it had snakewood handles, but snakewood handles at quite a reasonable price. So I bought it and I carried it, and I thought this was fantastic. I really like this knife. It's a lockback knife with ball bearings, which is an unusual thing to find. But I bought another one in black G10, and I gave it to my it wasn't my son-in-law then, but I think they were engaged at the time. They're now married. And he opened it, and the first thing he did was cut his thumb open really very badly. Luckily, my daughter, now his wife, was a nurse, so she was able to tie it up, but sharp. And then he bought me this one, another QSP. And again, this is in 14C 28N steel, and I've had this one. He bought it for me for Christmas, and I've given this some good use. That edge does wear well, and I haven't resharpened it. I haven't needed to resharpen it, so I don't know quite how that would go. And what the steel on this one was. This one was designed by Arthur Brem, who's a German YouTuber. He does speak English, but unfortunately, most of his videos are in German, and I don't speak a word of German. This one's N690. So it's interesting because N699s are generally those made in Italy, but I believe that these were all made in China. Anyway, back to the Hawk. That's what we're here to see. This is a very competent knife. It's got that great drop point blade shape. It's quite it's not a full flat grind, it's a saber grind, but it's only got a small amount of flat here, which is useful when it comes to sharpening. That gives you a nice bit to clamp onto. But when it comes to slicing, it's almost full flat grind, so it's a good slicer. It's not got the hollow grind of the Hedgehog. This is flat, but it's it cuts really well. And I think that blade shape may not be sort of as visually eye-catching as the Hedgehog, but actually it's probably about the most useful shape there is. You've got a good point on it, you've got a bit of belly, and you've got a bit of straight blade. So there's pretty much, you can do pretty much anything with that, and it will work fine. This is slightly larger knife, but of course in the UK it probably doesn't matter because being a locking knife, you probably can't really carry it anyway. So um, the fact that the blade is north of 3 inches is not really too much of a problem. So yeah, it's about 3¼ inches. Cutting edge is probably just about dead on 3 inches. Overall 7½ inches. So it's a reasonable size. And how big's the handle? The handle is 4 inches of the way it's made. Rip on that. It's probably like 3½. But I've got big hands, large, large arms. It's you know, a good knife in my hand. I don't have any problems about it. I mean, I suppose it's probably a 3-finger knife, but that choil at the front, that cutout for the index finger fits my finger quite well, and the rest just wrap around. As I say, unfortunately, it's not ambidextrous. Now, I don't know if that's true of all models of this or just the brass. I probably should have looked, but I haven't. I'm bad. But I really did want to get this filmed because this is a great knife. I say it was sent to me by QSP, so you can assume it's the best one ever made, best quality checked one ever made, and your mileage may vary. But despite the fact they gave it to me, I still think it goes down as a good knife. It's not. It's maybe not the best knife I've ever had, or even the best QSP knife I've ever had, or certainly isn't my favorite. But then it's got some really healthy competition, particularly from the Hedgehog, which I absolutely love. But this is more of a British proposition because it's sub 3 inches and it's a slip joint knife. So this I can carry without fear anywhere. This one I have to be a little bit more considerate about where I carry it because it's a locking knife and it's over 3 inches, and in that case, in British law, it's effectively a weapon of mass destruction, and I have to be careful that Tony Blair doesn't launch another war on me for this. But it's a good knife, and if I could carry it more, I would carry it more. I've been carrying it around the house, and I've used it a few times, and it's a very good knife to use. I do struggle a bit with the flipping, but like I say, my wife can do that. I just handed it to her, so can you flick? She flicked it open without any hesitation. So it's me, and my hands are much worse than they were before my fall. My right hand is now pretty much useless. You'll see it come into play occasionally because there are times when I need to sort of brace against something, but this hand is I can't really open it very easily either. But there we are. It is what it is. We've got to learn to live with it. Right. So there we are. The QSP Hawk in brass and 14C N28. 28N, 14C, 28N. I always get that back to front. Steel. So very nice knife. Again, at a reasonable budget. These are available quite widely in all sorts of handle materials and different blade finishes. So if you fancy one, there's certainly going to be one that will suit you. Okay, thank you very much. If you like this stuff, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more of these, please subscribe. And remember to ring the bell if you want notifications. Thank you very much. Bye.